Same as last time.
Yes, I'll call out a character for you to act
Okay.
as. Rayfus?
That was me, right?
Yes, that's correct.
She did. She got me once when I was there. I'd asked her to keep it a secret, but she promised she wouldn't tell anyone.
So that's how it is.
I'm not seeing both of them. I swear it on my life.
He couldn't have been making a stronger effort to plead his innocence.
I admit that I was seeing Elisa before, but we aren't together now. In fact, she's been very supportive of me and Angie. There are days when she brings homemade scones and jam to everyone in the club. I don't have a poor word to spare for her, really.
I can tell that both Angelica and Elisa are precious to him.
If you have a way of helping Angelica, then please, do what you can.
Of course.
Thank you.
Rayfus left the courtyard.
Nika?
Oh, I forgot. I understand that he cares for both of them, but being equally kind isn't kindness in of itself.
Would you be willing to share anything more about Angie and Elisa?
What else? Well, they've been close friends for as long as I can recall. It never crossed my mind that they would both fall in love with Rayfus. Angie is head of the choir and is most strict with practice, but she always lights up like a child the moment Elisa comes in with all her baked goods.
This is my character, right? God, I didn't recognize because there's no picture. Rayfus mentioned the baked goods as well. Scones and jam, was it?
What kind of scones does she make?
She's baked quite a spread in the past, but the most common are either plain or with raisins. Her jam is strawberry or marmalade. Both so heavenly too, if I do say so myself.
I see. Has she ever once made something other than scones and jam for the choir?
No, just those. We love tea breaks, so food is often a topic of conversation. Elisa, comes have never failed to please.
Thank you. You are a great help.
We said our farewells to her before leaving. What is it, Marple? Are you concerned about her scones?
Yes, a little. Angie brought them up rather frequently.
She told me about them as well, saying Elisa's clotted cream perfectly complemented them.
That's correct.
How do you feel about Rayfus?
I don't believe he's lying. His gaze was true. There was no uncharacteristic sweating. He had a clear and concise response. Above all else, he fully admitted to visiting Angie's room. Part of me does feel uneasy with Angie lying to me to protect him. He did sneak into a girl's dormitory, after all.
I suppose it's romantic. He's gone out of his way to see her, even breaking the rules for her. And when she's ill, she must feel happy to have someone like him.
I wish I could understand. I can only think of the risk that comes when breaking the rules.
That's one way to see things. Barbara must not have any interest in love. With nothing more to debate on the issue, we return to the Baker Street office.
May I ask who's there?
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
Hold on.
Oh, did I
Give
just
me
steal
one.
something?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Oh,
Give me
I'm
one
muting
moment.
myself.
May I ask who's there?
one moment.
Someone pranking me?
Ding dong ditch.
Oh, come on. This is the 5th time this week.
It was the second time we had visited in a day, and what a busy day it had been. Good afternoon again. Is it all right if we come in and talk for a bit?
What's this? Back so soon, Miss Whitley.
Was she here earlier? You never told me, Holmes.
And the point that would be? Forget it. What do you need this time?
Well, make yourselves comfortable.
Watson sported a welcoming grin as he opened the door for us.
I'm not some jack of all trades. This won't be as easy as...
Leave it to me, then. It's hardly difficult to examine medicine.
Watson abruptly cut Holmes off, earning a nasty glare in turn.
And what reason do you have to do this? No questions asked? You may have nothing to do, but I have been inundated with...
That's why I said leave it to me. Now, with that sorted, have a seat and I shall dive into research.
Thank you.
Permit me to accompany you.
Marple followed after Watson. I'm sorry to barge in twice in one day.
There's nothing to be done now that you're here.
From then on, Holmes and I shared silence. Oh, come to think of it, there was more for us to do than wait, I thought. I reached into my pocket for the shell I'd found in Angelica's room. I'd place it in there in a rush since Marple wanted to leave. Holmes was quick to become curious.
Miss Whitley, what is that?
This? I'm wondering about myself. I fear I don't know what it is.
May I? I wish you'd take a closer look.
Please do. Here. I gave the shell to Holmes. It was such a tiny thing, but he still inspected it from every possible angle he could, flipping it around, feeling the texture of its surface, and tapping it.
It's the shell of an apricot seed.
That's all?
When you break a shell, you'll find an apricot kernel inside. An interesting fact, a decomposed unripe kernel can lead to prussic acid poisoning when mixed with gastric fluid.
Frightening to think of such a little thing as poisonous.
I concur, but it's possible to remove the poison. There's even medicine in the East that makes use of the kernel. It all depends on how it's prepared. Anything can become a weapon if that's how you intend to use it.
So, a shell to an apricot seed, is it?
Success! The test is complete. You can now safely conclude there isn't a drop of poison to be found in this medicine.
Watson appeared from the back room, cheerfully shaking the small bottle, with Marple not far behind.
I could find no error in his examination. He is well on his way to becoming a first-rate doctor.
I am not. On my way to becoming a first-rate detective, more like.
Thank you, Watson. Marple, Holmes informed me that this is the shell of an apricot seed.
Where did you find this, Emily?
in Angelica's room when we went to retrieve her medicine. I thought to take it with me since something about it struck me.
Its seed contains something that's rather poisonous, doesn't it?
Could she have broken the shell and mixed the kernel in with a jam?
But no one mentioned apricot jam, and it's not possible to extract poison from a ripe apricot.
It's been some time since the kernel was taken from its shell. The scent is long gone. But a fresh one smells quite good, similar to an almond.
Of course! An almond! Marple and I have one mind. Her face tense.
If it's what we're thinking, then we must return immediately. Emily!
Miss Lineygray, are you please?
Okay. Are there still any scones left, Eliza?
Nika?
I've got strawberry jam and clotted cream. How do they sound?
Elisa, hands quivering, sliced a scone in half.
That sounds delightful. Thank you. I'm feeling a bit better, so I can eat some.
While scooping the clotted cream with a spoon, several knocks were heard from the door.
Ah, I'll get it.
Before Elisa could even turn the knob, the door had swung open on its own.
Hello again, Angie. Elisa. The air smells delicious.
Miss Marple.
I accompanied her as she barged in.
Oh? Whatever is the matter?
We're sorry to come in like this, but we have a good reason. The scent of warm tea, scones, jam, and clotted cream permeated the room. Are you having a cup of tea? Oh, and that cream smells just divine. May I have some?
Pardon? This is for Angie.
Let her have some, Eliza. I don't think I can finish it all, so I insist.
A darkness manifested over Elisa. This darkness, this anxiety grew by rapid leagues in the seconds between Angelica's consent and Marple reaching out.
Don't!
She let out a shriek as she went to seize the cream from Marple's hand.
Ah!
It dropped with a clack to the floor.
Why are you so opposed to her eating this?
Because,
She could not answer. Her eyes flickered to where she could not keep focus on any one of us present. Angelica remained perplexed as much as she was concerned, seemingly aware that she was the only girl with no understanding of what just transpired.
Sarah, what is it? Your face is like stone. And Eliza, you look terrible.
I'm so sorry. I put,
Marple was the one to stop her.
I'd prefer if you didn't say. I don't want to hurt Angie.
Poor Marple. Marple leant close and whispered, a chilling calm to her voice, into Eliza's ear.
Clumsy of me. It seems I've dropped your homemade clotted cream.
This isn't like you at all. Still, if Eliza forgives you, then why shouldn't I?
Angie!
Everything you make tastes so wonderful. I don't think there's anything in this world you can make that I wouldn't eat.
At first, Elisa was nothing more than awestruck. But soon her head was downward, expression masked by her fringe, with her shoulders beginning to shake.
Eliza? Eliza, what's wrong?
Not to worry. She'll be all right after I take her outside for some fresh air.
The two of us led Elisa to the dorm entrance, leaving Angelica alone in the room.
I don't believe you ever gave this cream to the students in the choir. Rayfus was your motivation, yes? We heard from him that the two of you used to be in a relationship.
Because I was the one who was seeing him first. I never thought a friend of mine would take him away from me. I loved him. I couldn't understand why he chose Angie over me. I can't understand how much regret I feel for introducing him to her. I never told Angie that I was seeing him, so perhaps I'm at fault, but I didn't imagine he would come to fancy her.
For what felt like the first time, Elisa looked directly at us, eyes glossed over from tears that had yet to fall.
I could take him back if Angie were absent. That's what I told myself. I didn't think of it too hard at the beginning. I imagined how much easier it would be to get him alone once he was bedridden.
And that didn't go as planned.
It's all he ever talked about. Every single day she has been away. It's Angie, Angie, Angie. They just grew closer and closer.
Still, that isn't enough.
I knew I was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't.
Elisa collapsed and broke into heavy sobs.
Angie is a sweet girl. She's innocent and bright, even to me. Had you spoke of the nature of your relationship with him, things might have gone a different route. You should know that with the route you chose, Angie may have died.
No, one of this world can stop two people from falling in love. But the time I considered talking to her, it was too late. How pitiful would I have looked when they were already in love. I know I did something unforgivable. But please, 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 don't tell anyone about what I did. If Angie and Rayfus knew about this, they would hate me.
But what you did was clearly attempted murder. Do you realize that?
I didn't mean to. I didn't think that far ahead. Please, I'm begging you to keep it secret.
All she could do was cry some more, and beg.
If my mother were to find out, she would grow ill with grief, and my father would whip my back till I could no longer stand. I would be arrested and imprisoned.
You deserve it. That's payment for what you did. Is that so difficult to understand?
Please, 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 I don't want to be arrested. Have mercy, Father, Mother.
It was neither Marple nor I who broke the silence.
Sarah, Emily, could you please forgive her?
Of all the people in the world who would first speak of forgiveness, it was Angelica, who was still in her nightgown. What? Angelica?
How long have you been there? And you shouldn't be up.
I'm sorry, Sarah, but I was so worried about Elisa. I heard everything.
Angie!
Angelica had dragged her weakened body down despite it working against her for every step. She stumbled as she approached Elisa, who lost the will to speak at the sight of her.
Elisa is she's one of my dearest friends. Everyone has another side of them, a good side and a bad side. And I'm still alive. Why, even a healthy person comes down with a sickness at times. That's true, isn't it, Sarah?
Marple looked down at the floor, lost for words. In the short time I've known her, I'd never seen her look as unsure of what to do as she did now. The silence was almost too heavy for us to bear.
Go.
Me?
Get out. Leave the dorm by the end of the day. And promise me that you'll go somewhere far, far away from Angie and never come back. If you break that promise, I'll have Scotland Yard find you, and I'll tell Rayfus what you did.
Marple?
I'm not an informant of any kind for the police, but you'd best leave before I consider being one.
I understand. Please, take care of Angie.
I will.
Lisa, take care. Do keep yourself in good spirits, alright?
Yes, same to you. Thank you, Angie. And I'm truly, truly sorry.
In the end, she couldn't choke back her tears as she said her goodbyes. Several days passed in a rush. At any rate, I'm so glad Angelica's all right now.
I'm glad too. Seems she's even well enough to attend choir practice already. And yet part of me can't help but feel like I stole her best friend.
Marple? She said it in her ordinary matter-of-fact tone, but I could hear the sadness beneath.
Excuse me, would you pretend you didn't hear that?
As we walked through the halls, we could overhear enthusiastic chatter from the music room.
Captain, let's try our parts again one more time.
Alright, shall we begin with the sopranos then?
It's essential that we have everyone's cooperation in time for the Christmas concert. We can do this now.
We'll have to put everything we have into since Eliza's quit the choir. Let's put our backs into it.
They all seemed full of life, as if they were having great fun.
Oh, I've been meaning to speak with you again.
Angelica had a spring in her step as soon as she ran towards us in the hall.
The two of you will be attending our Christmas concert, won't you?
Of course, I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Sarah, I hope you haven't forgotten that promise we made.
I'm sorry? Promise?
You said you would cook some of your homemade vegetable soup. I've been waiting ever since. But I can only wait so long, you know.
But of course. Soon then.
It appeared that a weight had lifted from Marple's shoulders as she watched Angie return to practice. Oh, how I envy her! She's living out her youth to its fullest and having all kinds of fun with club activities.
Is it difficult for someone of the nobility to participate in club activities?
Unfortunately.
Listen, Emily. There are more ways than one to live life to its fullest. For a start, since it's such a pretty day, what would you say to having a cup of tea whilst we listen to the choir?
Her cheeks flushed as the corners of her mouth curled modestly. Did you bake scones by any chance?
How did you know? I've got jam, cream, and tea. Well, and not even any poison.
How could I say no? I'll have one of everything, please. I was reminded of when I had visited Angelica once, alone, since I was worried about her after all that happened. Marple's name had come up in conversation.
Sarah says that when she comes to mind so directly, that may find her to be callous. But she has a keen sense for how others feel and is equally true to herself. I'm a bit unrefined and insensitive, you know, but Sarah's always taken the time to look after me. I know you and Sarah will become fast friends. I've not seen her smile the way she was when the two of you had tea together in forever.
She must be so happy to be wearing such a beautiful smile. But could Marple really be so misunderstood? I hadn't intended to let that one slip.
What's this about misunderstanding me?
That would be a secret. Now, shall we lunch? As I reached for a scone...
Don't!
I felt an iron grip upon my wrist. Marple? Given recent events, my heart gave a bold thump.
Emily, I urge you to wipe your hands with this napkin before eating.
You're always so thorough, aren't you?
I should think so. I learned from my grandmother to always mind my table manners. Keep your hands clean and be certain to finish everything on your plate.
Like before, Marple handed me a petite napkin.
Angie is more engrossed in her club activities than ever. I miss her.
If you miss her, then how would you like to look after me in her place? I'd love to learn all that you've learned. And I should like to keep having tea together with you like this, if it's all right.
Well, I'll give it some thought.
Marple elegantly wiped her hands and reached for a scone. With the case now solved, it was nice to be able to return to daily life again. And through the experience, Marple and I had grown a little closer as well. I spoke with Pendleton that evening, as I always did. Thank you for dinner. It was very tasty.
I'm gonna try something. Tom, how about you voice Pendleton this time?
My lady, what's gotten into you?
Pendleton possessed a dubious brow as he brought me milk tea.
You declared with gumption that you could eat anything and survive. But here you are, behaving true to definition of elegance. Did you eat something rotten?
I did not. I always behave like this. But I feel I've realized something for what's happened recently. How murder can be motivated even by the most petty of emotions. I thought I should make a stronger effort to appreciate the meals prepared for me. It's something one normally takes for granted.
Well, well, it appears you've realized one, no, two things.
More than two. Ever since I've been attending the academy, I've discovered something new each and every day.
That warms my heart to hear. A good thing, too, as my heart was broken utterly upon sending you off.
You? Broken heart? You're being dramatic.
Far from it. I fear I may have understated my grief. Why, on your first day of school, I suffered agony equal to that of hacking away at one's midsection and scraping out all viscera.
I cannot imagine how painful that would be, so understated it will remain. I daintily sipped my milk tea. It was the middle of the night, and all of the servants had long gone to sleep. The night was so still that I could hear the owls outside hooting as I sat at my desk. Before me, the books and my diary. This was my private time, and using it as such had long been a part of my daily routine. Or so was the case until recently, but so much had been happening lately that it had become partially forgotten. Still, now I'd remember. Perhaps I should take some time to myself before calling Pendleton. So, what's it to be this evening? What shall I do? I shall write in my diary. Perhaps I should write in my diary. Every day I attempted to add something new. I flipped to a fresh, blank page. Recently, I made a new friend, an absolute darling by the name of Sarah Marple.
If you wouldn't mind, would you like to lunch together? Here you are, a tomato and cheese sandwich.
The scones she bakes have such a mouth-watering flavor to them.
Sarah says what comes to mind so directly that many find her to be callous. But she has a keen sense for how others feel and is equally true to herself. I'm a bit unrefined and insensitive, you know, but Sarah always has taken the time to look after me. I know you and Sarah will become fast friends. I've not seen her smile the way she was when the two of you had tea together in forever.
She plays at being distant, but she's so very kind, and she cares deeply for her friends. There, I thought as I finished, that should be enough. I'm a bit exhausted. Perhaps I should head straight to bed. My eyes absent-mindedly wandered towards a painting. It was a massive one which hung on the wall of my room. It was the only thing that reminded me what my family was like. My childhood had almost completely faded away by now. Without it, I doubted I could even recollect my parents' faces. This painting was commissioned when I was only 4 years old, the same year that happened. It's such a pleasant, beautiful painting to admire. Every time I set my eyes upon it, it helped to convince me a little more that I knew what they were like beyond vague, fading memories. I didn't know the meaning behind it at the time, but now I knew that both of them had had Her Majesty's ring bestowed upon them. The room in the painting was the former living room. It had long since burnt down. The mansion I currently resided in was built to resemble the previous one on the outside, but the inside would never quite be the same. This painting symbolized one of my truest, most precious memories. At the same time, it served as a reminder to never stop seeking my mother and father's murderer. Her Majesty said that she had been helped by my mother, that my mother was a woman who would come to anyone in need. I think such a steadfast trust was why she gave the same ring to her that I have now. I became fixed on the ring as I continued to reach further back into my memories. They were vague in many ways, perhaps true and others untrue, but who alive can recall their girlhood days with the clarity of the present? Until I was 4 years old, I lived in London with my mother and father. It was a windy night, so windy in fact, that I could hear it howling from my bed. Very suddenly, I heard a strange sound coming from the next room. I crept outside, opened the door to peek in, and saw everything. Mother and father were still. There, a man pulled a knife from my mother's chest with a wretched squelch. I felt someone grasp my trembling hand. It was Pendleton, who was the family butler even back then. He covered my mouth to keep me from screaming as he carried me out of the mansion. It wasn't long before it caught fire. All the papers the next morning reported them as having burnt to death in the blaze. But I knew. I saw a man. I saw his knife. I absconded to an old house in the countryside. It was thanks to the land, Pendleton's tireless care, and the kindness of our neighbors that my closed heart gradually healed. I would bore a hole at that painting on the wall every single night when I lived there, thinking, why? Why were Mother and Father gone? Why were they murdered? And every single time I asked myself those things, my desire to go back to London filled and find the man at night grew with a fever. All those thoughts filled me to the point of overflowing as I clung to the pendant my mother bequeathed me upon her death. Family portrait. The only portrait of my family I possess. It once belonged to Father. It was the dead of night. A fog permeated the east end of London.
Nika.
The blade carved itself into the woman's chest. In the same moment, her throat was twice spread open. From left to right, skin was slit. So methodical was this act that the surface of her skin remained an unfrayed, perfect line. The guttural scream Elisa never reached her lips. Her larynx and vertebrae had been severed. The woman collapsed, her eyes focused on nothing, fully absorbed with unhinged fear. Blood flowed out of her in an endless stream, smothering her esophagus. When her throat became full, it drained to a pool beside her. The chance for survival was not existent, but she would not die immediately. The road to death by design would be an artless torture. To breathe was in vain. Every breath she inhaled went out the hole in her throat, blood spluttering and thick through her choking, air never reaching her lungs. What she last saw as her consciousness gave way was a dreadful sight, the amused leering of a man she had never met, and a glint of the object of her demise looming from the darkness.
Jordan, go ahead.
Christ, it stinks. Where's that smell coming from? Look here. Some poor girl fell flat on her curb.
Mr. Avalon.
Damn drunkard. You think she's conscious?
Ain't something I would know. Perhaps best to wake her. Ah!
This!
The two were unsettled by a sight of nightmares. A woman, not a simple drunkard, now drowned in her own blood as her corpse lay on display.
This... What is this?
Something's coming, mate! This don't look good! We gotta run for it!
And so, they made a hasty retreat, shaken to the bones by the implications which would follow from being found next to a freshly slain victim. Into the embrace of night they fled.
Mr. Tom?
I heard footsteps coming from over here. What's this? A woman lying on the street. She's dead! Oh, what a grisly sight! Who could have done this?
The sky was a blanket of grey this morning. Still, my routine went on as normal. I had my morning tea, which had been prepared expertly by Pendleton post-breakfast. Today was Darjeeling. I added plenty of hot milk in it. I shifted through the paper, idly sipping my tea, expecting nothing of note to catch my attention, except something certainly did catch it, and right away at that. Gruesome Whitechapel murderer strikes again in the East End. In a clear pattern, the latest victim was a prostitute, and the cause of death involved multiple stab wounds with a bladed weapon. The paper continued to detail the similarities between the murder of this woman, Miss Tabram, and the previously murdered Miss Smith. It's appalling to think about. Someone out there has ended the lives of two people so brutally, and yet they still run free.
It is. London has become more dangerous of late.
It's natural for everyone to fear being targeted next. Paranoia has me seeing the criminal from every corner, no matter where they are. I could see myself feeling the same were I walking alone.
Well, my lady, I'm certain you know what I am about to say next.
Pendleton seemed concerned. Of course I know. You would like for me to be careful to and from the academy, even when I feel secure inside my carriage.
Not quite.
Then you want to cry, my lady, I am so very frightened of being alone at this big mansion. I beg you to come home straight away. Is that it?
Wrong.
Then is it? I confess, I am the one who killed them. I shall be turning myself in directly.
My lady, you must be joking. As if there were any chance I would willingly turn myself in.
What?
Now then, setting all humor aside.
You are far from humorous.
I am urging you not get yourself mixed up in any dangerous criminal investigations.
Well, that one is funnier at least. Pray tell, what is a detective without criminals to investigate?
Dangerous ones, if I may reiterate. You'd sooner be the next victim than solve the case.
That isn't true. You always think the worst.
One can never be too careful when both victims pertaining to this case are women. The picture painted is as follows. The police will ring the mansion and report you've been assaulted. I naturally rush to find you, but regrettably I am too late. And as I bemoan your loss, in a most shameless public display, it is all I can do to hold your jaggedly sliced abdomen together, to keep the caramel custard crammed inside from spurting forth. Whatever I could say to your mother and father, should such an event come to pass,
Throughout the sky.
Oh, sorry.
Throughout the sky, thunder resounded. The flash of lightning had made his momentarily darkened countenance especially eerie. Enough! Don't speak such ominous things.
Forgive me, my lady. Now, how would you like another serving of your favorite caramel custard?
What nerve! I think you know why I've suddenly lost my appetite.
Regrettable, but in some ways favorable. It means you've heeded my words for today. Do not dare to think you can arrest the heinous criminal on your own.
I would never.
And from this day, I've moved your curfew to 4 o'clock in the evening from 7 o'clock.
Did that not go through? Sorry.
It's fine.
No!
Should you choose not to abide by this curfew, I will have to ask that you forfeit your enrollment in the academy.
But isn't that too strict?
Quite the opposite. From where I stand, it's lenient. My lady, there are still many things you do not know. You've yet to experience firsthand the underlying darkness that pervades the streets of London.
Another thunderclap. Though he was only sorting out tableware, I felt an aura of foreboding from the butler. Pendleton, perhaps I've become too sensitive, but you've really no intention of killing me, do you?
What's brought this on? Worry not. No matter your wealth, I would never dream of killing you.
And you're absolutely telling me the truth?
Now it is you who is thinking the worst. At any rate, it's time for school. Mind your curfew, my lady.
By the time I arrived, the rain subsided, and the serial killing in Whitechapel was the choice topic of every student.
Mr. Jordan?
Have you read the morning paper? Had me shaken by the end of it.
Mr. Gregg?
Culprit must be a crafty one if there's not been a single lead on him.
Certainly. He must be, if even Inspector Lestrade is at loss.
Yes, but the yard's been in the lost plenty enough times for me to not be surprised. I just hope there's someone out there who can solve it so the monster doesn't get away. Doesn't get away? Sad.
Don't be so pessimistic. Let's judge the capable man for Scotland's Yard officer.
Speaking of which, I hear you and your father are cooperating with them on this investigation. Watson, you might consider making yourself as useful.
But we're students, and his dad isn't so keen on Holmes being part of such a dangerous case as you might think.
I didn't know that this was any of her business.
It doesn't make it any less true. Count your dad among the rest who don't have a clue who the culprit is. If he can't solve the case, what chance do I have?
That isn't something you should say with so much confidence, but I suppose I don't have any leads either.
This might be quite a case for everyone to be so stumped. The classroom was rife with discussion. Who could this murderer be? Man or woman? Were they truly so crafty? It was missed. Was there anything to miss? Like others, I fell into this dialogue with such interest that I didn't notice a schoolmate trying to shuffle past till he bumped straight into me. Oh, oops, pardon me.
Mr. Avalon.
Oh.
I'd seen this boy several times before, though we had never been introduced, and perhaps that was by intent. A slovenly fringe did little to soften the sharpness of such eyes, an unnaturally deep red and listless as they were in addressing me. I was still intimidated. His height, too, added to my pause. I'd hoped to be less discouraged upon recalling his name. What was his name? Aren't you...
Huh.
He didn't care to wait. and without answering, continued to his seat.
Emily, something on your mind?
Well, I only now realized I haven't asked that boy over there for his name.
Over where? Near the window?
Miss Whitney, that would be Jack Miller's.
Jack Miller's.
So he's the one you meant. He isn't one to socialize. Doesn't talk much, but I've heard he's here through a scholarship. That must be a smart bloke.
Indeed. The two of you couldn't be more different. Well quiet and passing marks on one hand, nosy and following marks on the other.
Oh, but I study! A lot too. It isn't my fault if I'm not made for the books.
Holmes was less than impressed by the excuse.
He's unique. Nearly all students in attendance are from the West End, you see. But he is from the East End.
Is that significant?
You might not know, so I hope you don't mind me explaining. Hold on, I'm having some technical issues here. It's taking a while for the stream to get ready here. Let me see. Unlike the West End, which is populated by the wealthy, the East End is reserved for the poor. It's the most dangerous area in London.
Oh, no, I wasn't aware. I knew the East End by name, but only that.
Despite unfavorable circumstances, he still passed the entrance exam and earned himself a scholarship. That's a difficult thing to accomplish for even those born in affluent families. A monstrous accomplishment for him, to be sure.
Yes, now that you've explained, I think so as well. I peeked again at Jack. He paid no attention to any of us in the classroom, instead staring blankly out the window. Since I know his name now, why not see if we can strike up a chat? Good morning, Jack. I'd like to introduce myself properly if you don't mind. I'm Emily Whiteley. It's a pleasure to meet you. He was still intimidating, or could it be that natural nervousness from speaking to someone new? Whichever it could be, I didn't want to let it stop me.
Watson, is everything alright?
Perhaps he's still having technical difficulties.
It sounds that way. We shall wait for him.
It appears so.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes,
All
we
right.
can. We can.
Okay, thank you so much for your patience. That said, Emily's rather quick, isn't she?
He's only just learnt his name. What a curious little puppy she is.
I have to wonder if there's a compliment with the way you say it.
I waited, no response, and then finally he spoke.
You need something?
Look at that! He said words!
He's not mute.
I was and Watson and Marple thought they were quieter than they were. Right, then, since we've never had a chance to speak to one another, I thought today might be a good day to try. I hear you're very smart. Perhaps you might find it fun to talk and teach me some more efficient study methods.
And why ask me?
It's because you're smart.
A funny sight for you, is it? Surprise someone from the East End is smart?
Huh?
Or did this serial murder catch your fancy?
His eyes grew even sharper.
Afraid I don't know anything special you might want to hear. I keep to me on business when I go to and from one. Oh my god.
No, I didn't mean...
Leave off then.
Jack leant closer to my ear, his voice dropping to a whisper.
How I got here ain't of your concern, so I'd prefer if you not ask more about it. I find it disagreeable.
Forgive me. Polite but blunt, neutral in tone but sharp enough to pierce me, I felt a frozen hand seize my heart, squeeze it cold. He frightened me. But this was no more in seconds, for he turned back to the window and resumed his gazing. Now I've done it. I've caused him such distress. It was never my intention, but intent was often erased the moment unintent became the dominant lasting thought. A lesson learnt as I returned to my seat.
I suppose everyone has one or two things they're sensitive about.
Understandably so.
It's not you, Emily. You'd say the same to any of us.
Miss Whiteley, you have a habit of prying into another's life, whether they open the door for you or slam it in your nose. Most are too afraid to even address his name, but you charge straight in with no hesitation. I can help but respect your unique brand of delicacy.
That's enough, Holmes.
I may be a little insensitive, but I'll have you know... Holmes roused me to defend myself, only for me to be cut off before I could start.
He's back!
Mr. Thomas?
Good morning, class. Let's all have a seat so we can get started now.
Oh, that's right.
Our teacher ceased all discussion the moment he stepped into the classroom. My schoolmates obliged in a hurry, desk and chair shuffling about in the process.
You've no doubt heard the news, but there has been some discussion relating to a certain serial murder case. You are in the detective's course. I understand if it piques your interest, but the instructors are responsible for your safety on behalf of your families. The murders are currently concentrated in Whitechapel, but the culprit remains at large. And so I must ask that you take every precaution on the way to and from the academy. Or either first to discover your corpse mangled nearly beyond recognition. I just don't know what I could begin to say to your loved ones.
I have a feeling that Mr. Mackenzie and Pendleton would get on well.
I extend this warning to our young ladies especially. Stay alert. Should you suspect you're being followed, go to a shop or contact an officer. I'll say it as many times as need be. The moment classes end, you're to go home.
The teachers are fretting so much over us. I wonder what Jack thinks of the case since it's all where he lives. I dared a tiny glance in his direction. Did he fear the murderer? Had he paid any mind to Mr. Mackenzie's warning? If either of those things were so, he made no indication. Jack seemed to have more interest in nothing, that is, staring out the window, than in danger of some things, that is, the murders.
Mr. Thomas?
Oh wait, isn't it the same person? He just doesn't have the sprite. Or no,
No, it's
my
Mr.
bad.
Mackenzie.
Oh, okay. All right, class. May I turn your attention to these pots?
Pharmacology was next. In preparation for our lesson, Mr. Underwood presented to us several pots filled with vibrant flowers.
Today's lesson will involve teaching you about this very plant. Would anyone here be familiar with delphiniums?
I am.
Holmes raised his hand and answered.
It is classified as a perennial plant, and typically thrives in mountains with cooler temperatures. It's known for its beautiful blue and purple flowers. It contains a toxic alkaloid known as delphinin. This toxin, if ingested, results in diarrhea and vomiting, or death in several severe cases.
Thank you, Holmes. You shared everything I was going to say.
It was my pleasure.
Though these many complications exist, many consider delphiniums to be so beautiful that they risk the danger and grow it purely to admire them. Take a closer look and study it as part of our lesson. And should a friend of yours send you these in the future, I want you to think hard and remember what dreadful thing you've done to them. Really, it was quite the surprise when my wife gave them to me on our anniversary with a smile.
Yeah, marriage sounds, complex,
At any rate, we are to be observing these lovelies. Following that, you're to submit a report on the various ways to make use of their toxin.
And we did precisely that as we divided ourselves into teams. Designated students carried their pots to their group stations with a cautious air after hearing what they were capable of doing. A slow, awkward waddle here, a long-held breath, and prickled tension there.
Oh, slipped my mind. Delphiniums are considered harmless unless you eat them. Now, the toxin can enter your body through cuts on your hands. As a precaution, I want you to wear gloves when carrying pots or touching its petals.
Lupine, you're carrying a pot, but where are your gloves?
Mr. Jordan?
My gloves? Ah! How could I find one?
Don't go dropping it now.
Quite fortunately, the pot was secured by Watson just before it was to crash onto the floor. Lupine? Watson? The petals didn't touch you, did they?
We're alright. The pot is too.
I'm so sorry. How could I have treated such a pretty flower so poorly? God, I nearly killed it.
Is the flower the only part you feel badly about?
Oh! And of course the same to you, Watson.
When all chaos from gathering our materials was settled, each of us went to work monitoring the various features of our chosen plant. The flowers themselves are so pretty, I wouldn't have known they carry a deadly toxin. I diligently started scribbling the most distinguished features of the plant before looking upwards and catching sight of Jack yet again. He was observing the same plant as I was. There was a sort of distance in how he observed. I was close, eyes focused, lips bitten, nose folded at the bridge as the petals received a delicate prodding. And he? None of these things. There was no scowl from this morning, but his expression lacked interest as well. All I could read was that he stared and stared blankly. All that watching, he's not taken a single note. I took a moment to consider if the incident from this morning meant it was best not to approach him. Oh, what could it hurt? Pardon me, Jack? My concern was greater, but I still approached.
You again?
It frightened me for a second time. The wall he built with his stare felt impenetrable upon first greeting, to be sure.
Shan't keep me waiting if you've got something to say.
But what to say at a time like this? Perhaps I want to ask him about his notes. He hasn't taken any notes. He's just standing there. Have you not taken any notes, Jack?
Does it matter to you?
Well, we're both looking at the same pot, so you had me curious. Did you forget your notebook? I'd be happy to lend you mine.
I've got mine. I don't need no help. I'll write me notes down as I please later.
Oh, that's good.
You might perhaps consider what to do yourself become fretting over me.
Oh, why?
Your book says British history, not pharmacology.
It does? To think I touted myself as the diligent one. Oh no, I'm sure even my ears turned red then. I never noticed the book's title till Jack pointed it out.
You blind?
I was so preoccupied with the plant that oh God. I downcast my eyes to shut away everything around me. It was not the floor which I noticed then, but again, Jack. His hand possessed several ill-dressed cuts. The wounds were fresh, the skin which made to heal around each one was speckled with dried blood, half picked at their edges, and a sore sight no matter how one looked at them. Whenever I get so much as a scratch, Pendleton's right there to clean and bind it. No! He's going to touch the plant with those awful cuts? But toxin! Don't touch it with your bare hands! I reached out to block him. Rather than express any thanks, he returned my efforts with a snarl.
What is it now?
Upon close inspection, I spotted that his cuff was stained with blood. Some of those injuries had yet to even close. Weren't you listening to Mr. Underwood? That toxin can enter your body with just a single touch if you've any open wounds.
It's alright. I ain't worried.
Jack motioned to touch the flower. Don't! What if you were to lose your hand?
Alright. If it shuts you up.
Finally, he may have put up a bit of a fight, but the win was mine, and it did my heart good.
You ought to spend less time nosing about someone else's affair and more time writing better notes for yourself.
Whether he was genuinely so irritated with me or could not be bothered, the result was the same. He went to return to his seat. But those cuts, those terrible cuts, the potential toxin wasn't the only issue with them. The thoughts of leaving them untreated would nag at me until I went mad, I was sure. Jack! Wait, here. I bound his hand with my white handkerchief.
What's this?
It's only temporary, so promise me that you'll see yourself to the infirmary, all right? I strengthened the knots at the top, but not too tight as to irritate his injuries. It did look a touch unsightly, but it was better than nothing to prevent all those scratches from getting worse. Jack seemed to think it was more than unsightly. He observed it with all the disdain of an object too foreign to comprehend. The scarlet eyes of his squinted in scrutiny.
You've lived a charmed life. Being so worse off that a little dressing will make a difference. Or is this just you from earlier? Should hope not.
It isn't like that. I can't ignore something like this. If it's between taking action and doing nothing at all, then I choose action.
So it's a charmed life for a charming girl, is it?
Don't make fun of me. Why did you let your injuries get this bad in the first place? You ought to take more care of yourself.
It's all the same to me, but if you...
Jack?
Never mind.
And thus our conversation was ended. I wonder what he was going to say.
I believe you've had enough time to observe. If everyone will return to their seats, please.
I continued to worry, but what good did worrying do when there was nothing to be done about it? There was no need for further resistance on my part with Jack, so I simply did as instructed. I couldn't resist a final peek in his direction, however, and there he was, gazing out the window once more. I was on my way out of the classroom once the lesson was over when Watson approached.
Emily, you'd best stay away from him.
Who do you mean? Not Jack.
Yes, Jack. May not be right to say this, but they say East Enders aren't the most fond of the nobility. You can try to be friendly to him. There are some who hate you, just for being born into wealth. It's the same for the police and the royal family. Someone hates something blindly. A little kindness won't be enough to change their mind. You take care, alright?
Not you two. We're schoolmates, aren't we?
I know. It really isn't right. I'd rather you be safe.
And I appreciate that, but he does not strike me as a bad person. Jack never tried to shake my hand away when I wrapped the handkerchief. He was a man of cruel words and a man potentially kind in action. I can agree that he's a bit blunt, at least.
You call that a bit blunt? I know you're a lovely girl, but I hope you know the world isn't all champagne.
Watson could only smile bitterly. Jack had not moved all morning, and he took no interest in his surroundings. I was curious of his expression, if it was stripped of emotion or in deep thought, but that unruly hair made it difficult to see his face. He could have done with a thorough cut and brushing. I'll admit that he isn't the most approachable sort, so I see why people give him a wide berth. But still, Jack being different to us means we can learn something new from him. I want to get to know him. I want to understand him. For a third time today, I chose to approach him. It cannot be. He's sleeping. He was so passive I could not tell when he was awake and when he slept. But he's finished taking proper notes. When did he have the time? It's very queer. Although the day was done for most, Holmes and Watson were plenty hungry for after-school investigating. The life of the detective was a lively one when new murderers were on the calendar.
We'll be off now. Scotland Yard has requested our advice on the matter.
Don't want to keep the sergeant waiting long. Let's go.
If the Yard means to consult with you, then is it in regards to the East End murders?
It is. Police have been scrambling about desperately for even a single clue.
Oh, I'm sure. The case is a source of great anxiety for London. They can't very well have nothing to share.
Ms. Whiteley?
In some unusual twist, Holmes appealed to me directly despite his pressing timeline.
What do you make of this bizarre case? Knowing the danger, does it still interest you?
Does it matter when we were the only ones they rang up?
It does not. Yet curiosity still has the best of me.
How shall I answer? I'm just dripping with curiosity. I must know. I'd say I'm very interested in the case.
Are you now? A serial killer runs rampant in the slums, and only women have thus far been targeted. What a fear.
What's of it, really? If I were to arrest the killer sooner than later, no more women would be targeted. Fear is not danger.
That is true if you had the skill for it.
Speaking plainly, it's still a bad idea to have her with us. Not for your lack of skill, Emily. Think of the danger.
I stood between two men of two strong minds. One wished to challenge me, whilst the other wished to keep me safe.
Holmes, shouldn't we be off then?
We should.
Till tomorrow then, Emily. Go home straight away, alright?
Of course, I'll do just that. Bid them a quick farewell as they retired from the classroom. If I were a boy, would they have allowed me to investigate without question? My contemplations continued in the form of a small sigh that matched my injured expression.
Hello there.
A sudden voice from behind me roused me from my thought. Jack?
That jump ain't very well many of you.
I could not understand if he was impressed or soured by my reaction as he raised an eyebrow. How long has he been behind me? I didn't know he was still here. My next exclamation came as I spotted Jack's hand. Well, so you did go to the infirmary? I could see the difference. My handkerchief wrapping was a crude solution, if one were to speak of it politely. And now my solution was dismissed in favor of a cleaned cut, held securely in a correct bandage, to which I could only say, excellent! How pleased I was that he listened and tended to his injuries.
Never again. Couldn't take the smell of antiseptic.
Oh, nonsense. If you can't take the smell, then you can take care not to get injured. Jack looked away in a certain embarrassed manner that said he had no counter. It could have been that I was the victor in this back and forth, and were he injured again, he would take my advice first thing. Yet even if he did not, he listened this time, and that alone did well to lift my heart.
You know,
Yes? This time, he was not intimidating, but rather awkward. Very awkward indeed, with a distinct flicker of question in his eyes, above a blush that prompted him not to ask.
never mind.
You're sure? Whatever this question was, he could not pluck up the courage and dashed into the hall. Wait! Jack! But I wouldn't let it end there. I followed and cried his name, and to my surprise, he stopped.
What is it?
I wished to talk with him more, see what he's really like. But what can I say to ensure I had nothing ill of his background again? Various ideas slipped through until I recalled the notes he'd written in class. Now, that can work! Jack, if it's no trouble to you, I have a thought. How would you feel about exchanging letters?
Huh?
I had him more puzzled than I'd ever seen him.
Why would you want to do that?
Because... What should my response be? I shall tell him I want to get to know him better. I want to get to know you.
Me?
Yes, you. What little I know about you is so darling that I wish to know more. I wish to know what kind of person you are, what your favorite things are, what skills you take pride in, anything you feel at liberty to speak of. And if you could ask the same things of me, then that would just be wonderful. So you see, I wish to be your friend.
You aren't afraid? You're gonna find me a nasty sort?
Not at all. Why would I?
No reason.
Jack looked away with a similar discomfort to before. And I noticed how quick you were taking your notes. Exchanging letters would be much more convenient for you than all this directness, wouldn't it?
I've, never written one before.
That's all right. You ought to write anything that comes to mind. I shuffled around for the stationery in my bag. Would you wait for me? I won't be more than a minute.
If you want.
Since our first one, I should reintroduce myself. My pen works with an inelegant scritch, scritch, scritch as I hurry to fill a page. For the end, I know, you'll need to change those bandages often if you want your injuries to heal. Sign my name here, and... finished. I blew at the ink to ensure it was dry before folding the letter and storing it in a pretty envelope.
Wouldn't it be faster to chat than do all of this?
Perhaps, but then what would be the point in exchanging letters?
And that's to be my own problem now. Why do you even bother carrying those things around?
Stationery? It's Pendleton, my butler. He instructed I carry them in case I needed to write an emergency letter.
Letters for emergencies. Well then.
Jack's expression was too complex for me to read it fully. I continued regardless. I'm looking forward to your reply. You must write one now, alright?
You have an odd mind for a noblewoman. Do you know that?
My, do you really think so?
I know so. Don't know another one who loves to popping in and meddle the way you do.
Meddling. He called it. Meddling made it sound so trite. And how could a budding friendship be anything but grand? I could not tell if Jack understood me sincere or too headstrong to challenge, or both. But that he accepted my letter was enough for me to end the day a happy girl.